What is up, guys? I am Jake37 here once again with a brand new video. And here today I have a story that I have been holding on to for like 2 months now. I can't believe this. I think it's absolutely insane. But I somehow never made a single post about this when it happened. I did not talk about this in a community post. I did not talk about it on social media. This is a story that only my local friends know about. My local friends and my coworkers. It's almost as if this trip never even happened. However, there are a couple of pictures and videos that I took on this day as well to verify that it did happen. I'm going to point this out before I get on with the video. My voice is completely f***ed right now. I just woke up, so I'm barely able to form sentences, and I sound fucking stupid when I'm talking. I do not know, but either way, my voice normally does not sound like this. I do not know why I'm talking like this. But anyway, this is one of my craziest experiences literally ever. This is something that put me in an extremely dangerous situation, and I wanted to do a video talking about it. In fact, I narrowly got out of this situation. So I am making this video because I recently filmed a video about my experience in Nebraska. I moved to Nebraska back in June of 2025. It became the craziest experience of my entire life. I mean, it was a great experience. I loved being there, but there was a lot of bad to it as well. It doesn't sound crazy when I say that I moved to Nebraska, but I'm going to start by saying that I had no local friends or family anywhere near Nebraska. Like, I did not know a single person other than the people that I moved in with. I moved in with 2 random people that I met on Facebook. Well, one of them. The other person was the boyfriend of this person, but it was 2 people that I'd never met before, basically. I had never stepped foot in Nebraska before. I had never been on a plane before. I had never traveled solo before. It is an absolutely crazy story. So a few months ago, I was like, you know, I haven't really got out of the house that much. So I wanted to walk out of the house and just go kind of explore. Now, I'm going to tell you how I get around most of the time. Lyft is basically how I get around because in my area, there are no buses and Uber just does not work in my area. So basically, my only option is to either walk or get a Lyft, and that's what I always do. And I noticed that it had been some time since I had really left the house, so I wanted to walk out and go on a massive adventure. I walked this direction and I began to walk down the street. I walked all the way from my house all the way to the downtown district. It doesn't sound like too much of a walk, but it's actually really far away. It's like an hour by foot and it's through an area that I had never walked through before. So I walked all the way through this area and I reached the downtown district. Once I got to the downtown area, that was pretty much the plan for the day. Go walk a little bit, get some food, go explore some shops, and you know, so on and so on. I did 100% pull this off. And after I left the downtown area, all that was left was to walk back to my house, and that concluded the entire day. However, I decided to go the extra mile and try going somewhere else. This turned out to be one of my biggest mistakes. So when I left the downtown district, I saw a bridge that went to another side of the city, and I was like, okay, I'm going to check that area out. I want to get Chinese food, and I'm pretty sure the Chinese buffet is like on that side of the city. So I began to walk across that bridge. It was a completely different setting from the downtown area. In downtown, they have police everywhere. They have people monitoring like what all is happening. And throughout my entire life, there has been a very heavy police presence in the downtown district. But where I was heading, the police were not exactly present really anywhere in this area. So I was kind of on my own in this situation, like if something happened. So I walked to this really shady gas station and I bought an energy drink and started walking across the bridge. One fascinating piece of information is at this exact same gas station, there was actually a shooting there like a week before I had went there. I got this information like long after I got back, but I was really surprised to hear about it. I'm walking across the street and it's a completely different setting. Here I am walking across this bridge and some guy rolls up to me with a bike. And he also has like some brown mask over his face. He immediately started questioning me and started being a complete dick to me for some reason. And he asked me if I had my wallet on me. I did not. I only had my phone and I was paying for stuff with that. I said no, I did not, and I kind of proved to him that I did not have my wallet. He just kept going. I get to the other side of the bridge. What I saw was a complete contrast to the downtown district that I had just been exploring. So there were like homeless people collected into one area on this side of the bridge. A lot of the buildings looked completely destroyed. A lot of the shops in this area were completely out of business. And after what I had just experienced on the bridge, I had a very bad feeling about where I was located. But I thought to myself, if I'm going to be traveling the world and going all over the place, then I have to do this. So instead of turning around and going back to the downtown area, I decided to walk deeper into this area and explore it. And again, I really wish I had recorded this day because there was so much to see. But basically, I was in a really bad area. So I kept walking and then I went into this grocery store, which is a kind of a chain in my area. It doesn't exist almost anywhere else though. So I went into this grocery store, and keep in mind, this isn't like a high-end grocery store like Publix or Whole Foods, but it has its audience. There are definitely some specific people who shop here, but this particular store did not seem like it was managed like at all. It was really bad in comparison to the rest of them. So then after I walked out of the building, some other guy walks up to me and asks if I can give him money, and I'm like, I do not have it. So then that guy walks away, and I keep walking further into the area that I am located in. So I kept walking and I made it to this park area. It was also connected to a neighborhood. It was basically a maze area. You had to really know where you were going to get out of this neighborhood. I decided to turn on my GPS and try getting through the area. And can you guess what happened? My GPS completely stopped working. I'm not sure what happened, but it basically inverted my entire map and I could not tell where I was going. I knew which area that I was located in, but I did not know which direction I was going, like if I was going in the right way or not, because my icon was inverted and it was showing me going an opposite way from where I was walking. And considering how many turns were in this neighborhood, that was really bad. The goal that I was trying to accomplish was to get to the Chinese buffet. I checked my phone battery and it was at roughly 25%. I was like, okay, that's just enough time to get to the Chinese buffet. I aimlessly keep walking, and then I realize I don't know where I'm going. And eventually I completely gave up on finding that buffet because I was so confused in this neighborhood that there was no way I was ever going to find it. I decided to whip out my phone and just call a Lyft and go back to my house. I was 4 hours away from my house on foot. Do you have any idea how far away of a walk that is? And it was roughly 7 p.m. It was starting to get dark outside. I said it's getting late, I should call a Lyft and just forget about the Chinese buffet. I'm in a bad neighborhood and I do not need to be in this area this late. I whip out my phone and I start to call a Lyft. In a very bad turn of events, my Lyft quit working. I tried to pay for it. It would say payment failed, try again. So I kept trying to pay for it. I kept re-entering my card numbers. I kept doing everything imaginable. It would reject every single time. Imagine yourself in this situation. You are 4 hours away from your house. Your one and only option to get back to your house is not working, and you are stranded in a really bad part of the city. It is pretty terrifying. So as I was panicking and trying to get my Lyft to work, this other guy was riding up on a bike, and I was like, oh, maybe this guy can help. I walk up to him, and I desperately get his attention, and I asked him where the Chinese buffet was, because not only was it the buffet that I was wanting to go to, but at the same time, they had a charging station where I could charge my phone and get my Lyft working. I asked the guy, I said, do you have any idea how to get to that Chinese buffet? I told him what it was called, where it was located, and he said yes, he did. We got further and further down the street. He started asking me questions, started talking with me, started getting to know me better. I stated that I was moving out of the country, and I stated that I was a Muslim. I had been talking about going to Canada because, Canada's a really nice place. I mean, it's not that anymore, but I am still moving out of the country eventually. I did, in fact, find a country to move to. It's going to be later in the year. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with that. He learned that I was a Muslim and that I was planning to move to Canada. And I want you all to think about this. This was one of the most shocking betrayals I think I have ever experienced. He stops in his tracks. He tells me to go to Canada Stan, and then he gets on his bike and he goes off. He completely ditches me in this area, and I'm like, what the absolute fuck was that? I stared in complete disbelief for a few minutes and was like, I cannot believe that actually happened. My phone was at 9%. I was still trapped in this neighborhood. My lift was not working, and I was 4 hours by foot away from my house. My roommate, of course, was at work. When my phone got so low, she was like, look, just send me your address and I will come and find you. I sent her the address and my phone officially hit 0%. I was stranded in the middle of this neighborhood with no GPS, no indication of where I was located, no one to help navigate me to where I needed to be at. If my roommate had never showed up, this day probably could have ended in a very different way. I am glad that I did not record videos on that day, because if I did, I probably never would have got out of that situation. I paid my roommate for the ride to literally leave work and come get me out of this area, and the crisis was averted, so I decided to do a little bit of research on where I had been located. This is what I discovered. So in that bad neighborhood that I was walking through, I learned that there were kidnappings in this neighborhood. It said online that multiple people have went missing literally in this area. I found a literal article online. It said that roughly a year ago, some guy who was on meth at the time literally decapitated someone in this neighborhood. Like, I did research and I learned online that there have been multiple shootings in that area, there have been multiple robberies in this area, and there were a lot of deaths and kidnappings in this area as well. I literally almost got stranded in this neighborhood. I told my coworkers this story, I told my friends about it, and somehow I never posted about this on YouTube or social media, but it was a very crazy experience and I cannot believe that I actually went through it. And I managed to get out of it in just the right time. Again, I like to take risk, and at the same time, I like getting the experiences, even if it's not exactly good. I am planning to go on a trip to Syria later this year. Syria is one of my favorite countries, and I've heard a lot of really bad stories about it. Syria is literally listed as one of the most dangerous countries in the world. I told myself, if you can't walk through a shady neighborhood, you have no business going to Syria or any of those places. So I kept walking regardless of how dangerous this place actually was, and to my surprise through Google, this turned out to be one of the most dangerous cities in the entire area. It's crazy because I thought this was just a shady neighborhood. I did not know that there was an actual danger to it, so that kind of added to my experience. But yeah, I got stranded in a dangerous neighborhood, and it almost ended really badly. This is Jake37. I'm a vlogger, I go places, and Syria is going to be one of my locations this year if everything lines up, and I do have some other places on that list as well. So, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you all later. Have a great night. I hope you all enjoyed this video.